Most people don't fail because they're weak. They fail because they walk the wrong path, and they never realize it until it's too late. And the terrifying part? You won't feel it happening. That's what makes it so dangerous. The world doesn't punish you the moment you make a wrong turn. It doesn't flash a warning sign. It doesn't send you an alert. It lets you feel comfortable. It lets you feel like things are fine. It lets you wake up every morning, go through your routine, and believe that you're moving forward, while quietly, slowly, you're drifting straight toward a life full of regret. One wrong decision doesn't destroy you, but one wrong direction, repeated every single day, compounded every single week, becomes something much worse than failure. It becomes a life you never actually chose, a version of yourself that you never wanted to be. And by the time most people realize it, years are gone, opportunities are gone. The energy, the fire, the belief that things could have been different, all of it slowly burned out, not by one big disaster, but by 1,000 small, quiet steps in the wrong direction. This video is a warning, not a motivational speech, not a feel-good message, a real warning before the damage becomes permanent. Because if you're watching this right now, there's still time. Let me ask you something honest. When you think about the life you want, the success, the respect, the control over your own future, what do you think it takes to get there? Most people will say hard work, dedication, consistency. And look, I'm not here to tell you those things don't matter. They do. But here's what nobody tells you. Hard work without strategy doesn't build power, it builds exhaustion. You can grind every single day. You can outwork everyone around you. You can sacrifice your sleep, your comfort, your social life, and still end up exactly where you started, or worse, somewhere you never wanted to be. Because effort without direction is just noise. It's movement without progress. The real danger isn't laziness. Most people watching this aren't lazy. The real danger is invisible. It's the wrong alliances you never questioned. It's the emotional decisions you made in moments of weakness. It's the blind trust you gave to people who didn't deserve it. It's the approval you kept chasing from people who couldn't care less about your future. These are the things that take a good person, a hard-working person, and slowly steer them off course. And by the time they look up, they've been off course for years. This is exactly what Machiavelli understood better than almost anyone in history. Now, when most people hear the name Machiavelli, they think manipulation, they think evil, they think dirty politics. But that's a surface-level reading. What Machiavelli actually understood, deeply, clearly, without illusion, was human nature. He understood how people really behave, not how we wish they would behave. He understood how power is lost, how good intentions become deadly vulnerabilities, how the naive, the trusting, and the approval-seeking always end up serving someone else's agenda. His wisdom wasn't designed for villains, it was designed for the aware, for the ones who refuse to be used, for the ones who want to see the world clearly and make decisions with open eyes. And in this video, I'm going to give you 7 strategic corrections pulled from that philosophy. 7 ways to recognize the wrong path before it costs you your future. By the end of this, you'll have a mental framework that most people spend decades or a lifetime trying to figure out. And if you apply even half of what you're about to learn, you'll start to move differently, think differently, and protect yourself from the kind of quiet destruction that most people never even see coming. Now, I want you to drop this affirmation in the comments. I choose awareness. Let's get into it. Number 1. Question every path before you commit. Here's a question most people never stop to ask. Why am I doing this? not the surface answer, not because it pays well, or because everyone else is doing it, or because my parents said so. The real answer, the honest answer. Why are you on the path you're on right now? Because here's the uncomfortable truth. Most people don't choose their path. They inherit it. They absorb it. They follow the trend, follow the crowd, follow the advice of someone who meant well but didn't understand their specific life. And then they spend years building something they never actually wanted. Machiavelli warned about this with a clarity that still cuts deep today. He observed that the majority of people are reactive. They don't lead their own life. They respond to the expectations, the pressure, and the narrative around them. And when you're reactive, when you're just following along, you're not walking your path. You're walking someone else's. And here's what's worse. When you're living someone else's blueprint, you're not just wasting time. You're becoming useful to other people's goals. You're becoming a tool. The person who spent 10 years climbing a corporate ladder they never actually wanted. The person who built a business because it looked successful on paper, not because it aligned with any real vision. The individual who chose a relationship, a city, a lifestyle because it looked right from the outside, while feeling completely hollow from the inside. Machiavelli called these people followers without intention. And followers without intention, he understood, are always controlled by those who do have intention. So the first correction is this. Before you commit to any path, question it aggressively. Not once, not lightly, aggressively. What are the long-term outcomes of this direction? Not just the next 6 months, not just the comfortable first year. Where does this road realistically lead in 5 years? 10 years. Ask yourself who benefits if you choose this path, because sometimes the path that's being handed to you is designed to benefit the person handing it, not you. The advisor who steers you toward a certain career, the person who encourages your dependence, the structure that keeps you producing without ever building real leverage for yourself. This doesn't mean everyone around you has bad intentions. Most people giving you advice are sincere, but sincere people can still be wrong, and following sincere but wrong advice with your eyes closed is just as dangerous as following bad advice on purpose. Independent thinking isn't arrogance, it's survival. It means you evaluate every option, every direction, every opportunity with your own set of standards, based on where you actually want to go, not where someone else thinks you should be. Strategy begins with independent thinking, and independent thinking begins with one simple but powerful habit: asking why before saying yes to any path that's placed in front of you. Before you walk any path, ask the hard questions. Make the uncomfortable evaluations, because a life built on unquestioned choices is a life that belongs to someone else, and you deserve better than that. Drop this affirmation in the comments. I think before committing. Number 2, stop seeking approval. This one is going to hit some of you harder than you expect, because most people won't admit how much of their life is being run by one invisible force, the need to be liked. Think about the last time you made a real decision, not what to eat for lunch, but a decision that actually mattered. How much of that decision was based on what you actually wanted versus what you thought others would accept? How often do you hold back your real opinion because you're afraid of conflict? How often do you agree when you deeply disagree, stay silent when you should speak, or change your direction entirely because someone disapproved of where you were going? If that question makes you even slightly uncomfortable, pay attention, because that discomfort is pointing at something real. The desire to be liked is one of the most powerful destroyers of personal power ever identified, and Machiavelli saw it with complete clarity. He observed that rulers, leaders, and individuals who built their choices around the approval of others always ended up in a fragile and vulnerable position, because every time they let someone else's opinion become more important than their own judgment, they gave a piece of their power away. And that's exactly what happens. You give it away, piece by piece, decision by decision. Approval seeking makes you predictable. And when you're predictable, you're controllable. The moment people around you, colleagues, friends, even family, realize that you adjust your behavior based on their reactions, you stop being someone with authority over your own life. You become manageable. You become easy to steer, because all anyone has to do is show disappointment, pull back their attention, or give you a look of disapproval, and you'll change course. That is not freedom. That is a leash disguised as social connection. Now, I want to be clear about something. This isn't about becoming cold or isolated or indifferent to the people in your life. That would be a misreading of the entire principle. What Machiavelli drew attention to was the difference between respect and popularity. And that difference matters enormously. Popularity is fragile. It shifts with the mood of the room. It demands constant maintenance and constant compromise. It requires you to be slightly different versions of yourself, depending on who's watching. And the exhausting part? It never actually satisfies. Because approval gained through compromise doesn't feel like real validation. Deep down, you know you performed for it. Respect, on the other hand, is durable. It's earned by being consistent, direct, and operating from a place of genuine conviction. People don't actually respect someone who agrees with everything. They may enjoy that person in the moment, but over time, they stop taking them seriously. They stop considering them a real force. And sometimes, without even realizing it consciously, they start using that person's need for approval as leverage. Here's the shift that changes everything. Stop making your choices based on what will be accepted, and start making them based on what is correct. Correct for your actual goals. Correct for your actual values. Correct for the life you're actually trying to build. When you stop needing approval, something powerful happens. You become harder to manipulate. You become harder to pressure. Conversations shift. The way people interact with you changes, not because you became aggressive or difficult, but because you started showing up with real conviction. And people feel conviction. They respond to it, even when they don't agree with it. If your choices are being driven by other people's opinions, you are already off course. Because you're not building your life. You're performing for an audience that has no real stake in your future. Power comes from respect. And real respect starts with respecting yourself enough to make your own decisions, even when no one around you applauds. Number 3. Study people before you trust them. The wrong allies will destroy you faster than any bad decision you've ever made on your own. Read that again, because it is one of the most important things in this entire video. The wrong people in your life, the wrong business partner, the wrong friend in a critical season, the wrong advisor, the wrong person you opened up to, can cost you years. Sometimes decades, sometimes opportunities that simply don't come back around. And this isn't about living in paranoia. This is about being clear. Being honest, because the single biggest vulnerability most people carry isn't a lack of skill or a lack of ambition. It's trust given too quickly to people who hadn't yet earned it. Machiavelli spent significant time observing people in positions of power, watching alliances form, watching betrayals unfold, watching capable people fall not from external enemies, but from the very people they call their closest allies. And what he concluded was something that made a lot of people uncomfortable. Human nature is consistent. People, regardless of their words, regardless of their warmth in the moment, are fundamentally driven by three forces: ambition, envy, and self-interest. This isn't cynicism, this is observation, and it's not a condemnation of people. It's simply an honest acknowledgement of how human beings operate. When you understand those forces, you stop being shocked when someone acts in their own interest, even at your expense. You stop being blindsided, because you already understood what was possible. The mistake most people make is they trust words. They trust a handshake, a warm conversation, a shared moment that felt genuine. And words are easy. Anyone can say the right thing. Anyone can express loyalty in a moment when loyalty costs them nothing. What you need to study is behavior, consistent behavior, over time, across different situations. How does this person act when there's nothing to gain from being kind? How do they talk about other people when those people aren't in the room? When they've made a mistake, do they own it honestly, or do they deflect and redirect? When you're struggling, do they show up, or do they quietly disappear until things look better? These aren't complicated observations, but they require patience, and they require you to be willing to see clearly even when you want the connection to work. Machiavelli was direct. Trust should be extended slowly, not because the world is full of malicious people, but because you genuinely can't know someone's character from a single interaction or even a handful of good experiences. You need to observe them under pressure, when they have something to gain at your expense, when they think no one is watching, when loyalty is inconvenient. That observation takes time, and the people who are actually worth your trust won't be offended by that process. They'll demonstrate their character consistently. They'll prove it without being asked. Your inner circle is one of the most powerful determinants of your entire trajectory. The people closest to you influence your thinking, your confidence, your access to opportunity, and your blind spots. If the wrong people are inside that circle, the damage compounds in ways that are difficult to even fully measure. Be selective, be patient, be observant, and don't be so hungry for connection or partnership that you skip the only step that actually tells you who someone really is: time and behavior. Distance protects your future. Choose your inner circle like your life depends on it, because in many ways, it does. I want you to drop this affirmation in the comments. Actions reveal character. Number 4. Control your emotions before they control your direction. Let's talk about the decisions that hurt the most, not the decisions you made carelessly, not the ones where you had no information. The ones that hurt the most are always the ones you made when you were angry, or afraid, or so overwhelmed with excitement that your judgment completely left the room. Almost every major regret in a person's life can be traced back to a decision made in a heightened emotional state. The relationship you stayed in far too long because fear kept whispering what-ifs every time you got close to leaving. The deal you walked away from in a moment of anger that you spent years wishing you'd held on to. The opportunity you jumped into without thinking because the excitement made everything feel obvious and certain until it wasn't. Emotions are powerful, and they are not the enemy. Let me be very clear about that. Emotions provide real information. The problem is when emotions become the decision maker, because emotions are wired to make you react fast, not think clearly. They are designed for immediate response, not long-term strategy. Anger narrows your focus to the moment and makes the immediate feel more important than any consequence. Anger says react now, deal with the fallout later, and there is almost always fallout. Fear makes you retreat when you should push forward, or cling tightly when you need to release. Fear disguises avoidance as caution and calls it wisdom when it's actually paralysis. And excitement, possibly the most underestimated disruptor, floods your mind with optimism and shuts down the part of you that asks the questions that need to be asked. Machiavelli observed this pattern with consistent clarity throughout his analysis of leaders and power. He watched people who had every resource, every strategic advantage, every legitimate path to lasting success, throw it all away in a single moment of emotional reaction. Leaders who declared war from wounded pride. Advisors who revealed sensitive information in flashes of anger. Capable people who abandoned winning positions simply because they couldn't tolerate the emotional discomfort of waiting. People who made permanent decisions from temporary emotional states. He understood that the strategic mind is not an emotionless mind. It is a disciplined mind. A mind that can feel everything, the anger, the fear, the excitement, the hurt, and still choose to pause before acting. That word matters more than almost anything else in this tip. Pause. That single act, pausing before responding, before deciding, before reacting, is one of the most trainable and most powerful skills you will ever develop. Because the pause creates space. And in that space, something shifts. The emotion is still present, but it is no longer driving. Your judgment has a chance to step in. When you're in a heated or charged moment, step back physically if you need to.